So finally, to wrap up, let's kind of dive into this Robert Downey Jr. news, because now the question becomes, and we won't know, I don't think at the very least until Fantastic Four, which is maybe where he will appear for the first time. I'm 50-50 on it, honestly. I think I'm leaning maybe like 35% he shows up there for the first time. Because again, I mean, you didn't need Thanos himself to show up at the end of Ragnarok to set him up in Infinity War. He just showed up in Infinity War. You knew he was coming. So perhaps they need to lay the groundwork, in the next coming films, that there's this guy named Dr. Doom. Doesn't matter really who's playing him up until he shows up. So yeah, 35%. But he'll show up in Doomsday. But I think the big question for us now is to speculate how. How is this going to work, right? Because while you could say, on the one hand, just get Robert Downey Jr. back, I think it needs more of an explanation than just let's get Robert Downey Jr. back. And so I've convinced myself that there are three main distinct possibilities with this going forward. Some, kind of, I think, highly unlikely, and some I think are perhaps more interesting than others. So let's start out with the least likely, in my opinion. And that is just that, it's Victor Von Doom. He has zero relation to Iron Man. It just looks like Robert Downey Jr., and maybe he'll just wear a mask the whole time. And we just wanted to get Robert Downey Jr. We're just paying him $80 million just to be Victor Von Doom. Which, if that's the case, I think that screams desperation. So, if that becomes the case, and I'm not saying, by the way, I feel like I have a little bit of a different stance, right? Because I think desperation, we can speculate all we want about whatever. It's like, desperation, this, and they're clinging to this or whatever. Until we see the film itself, though, I'm in no position to really judge, because perhaps something was desperate. If the end product is amazing, then I'm not going to complain at all about it. I'm really not. So, even if they were desperate, even if this was the avenue that they were going in, that it was just simply Robert Downey Jr. replacing Victor Von Doom, then for the record, if they execute it well, then I'm going to say I think it's a little weird still, but I have no problem with it. So we'll see. But on the surface, it just doesn't make sense to me. Why would you go through all of this hassle to get Robert Downey Jr. back, to pay him that much money, when you could have gotten, I don't know, his Oppenheimer co-star, Cillian Murphy, who certainly could not have been worth, no offense to Cillian Murphy, by the way, but I mean, Robert Downey Jr., and what he means to the MCU is just simply unparalleled to any actor in terms of especially money. So, Cillian Murphy, he won the best actor. He's a brilliant actor. He was fan casted by some people as Dr. Doom. He was certainly not going to be worth $80 million for 2 films. He was going to be expensive, but he was not going to be worth as much as Robert Downey Jr. was. So why go through all that trouble when there are so many other amazing actors out there who would have, probably loved to have done the role, especially for that kind of paycheck of like even $30 million for 2 films or $40 million for 2. I don't know, whatever. We're just throwing numbers out here. I have no idea how much other actors actually get paid for these kinds of things. But anyways, it doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, I mean, that is a possibility, that it's just Victor Von Doom from another universe, and it just looks like Robert Downey. It looks like Tony Stark from Earth 616. And they never even address it. Like, the characters don't even talk about it. I don't know. I feel like that's weird. Here's the middle ground. The middle ground is that Robert Downey Jr. is playing Victor Von Doom, who really resembles Tony Stark. And that is a point of contention in the film. So while the character that Robert Downey Jr. is playing is Victor Von Doom, who has no relation to Tony Stark, the fact that he does look like Iron Man is a plot point in the film somehow. Maybe, I don't know, Tom Holland's Peter Parker gets some trauma from this, and he feels like he can't kill Doom because he reminds him so much of his old mentor and everything like that. I mean, that could be a plot point. Is this what I think is the most interesting? No. It is certainly more interesting than if they just covered Robert Downey Jr.'s face with a mask the entire time. And we're just like, yeah, this is Dr. Doom, whatever. I mean, sure, I guess. It has some narrative weight, but I also think that what I'm going to talk about in my third possibility, you could have this happen as well, on top of what I'm going to talk about. So the third possibility that I see, and if you guys see any other possibilities that I'm missing out here, please let me know in the comments down below. I think there are a lot of really fascinating ways that they could go with this, and I'm excited to see what they actually do here. But the third possibility, and the one that I've been hearing people talk about, is that this is a variant of Tony Stark. Now, couple things with this that, I mean, because there are pros and cons to all of these, right? Cons are that this is not going to be Doom. Like, this is not going to be Victor Von Doom, born in Latveria kind of origin story. A couple people have pointed out maybe you could have this version of Tony Stark, maybe his parents died when he was much younger and he was taken in by this rich family in Latveria and he, did his tech genius stuff there and, ruled the world. And the family's last name was Von Doom and they renamed it, whatever. Like, you could definitely do that and then sort of similarly have this character kind of grow up as Doom while also being Tony Stark. Definitely possible. Other situations are that, Tony just goes by Victor Von Doom. Other possibilities is that, I should say it's because I guess this could be Tony Stark, but the Russo specifically said Victor Von Doom. And so I think whatever they do, I think that he has to go by Victor Von Doom at some point. So it could be a changed name. It could be, like a part of a different identity, maybe, but I think what is the most likely is that this is some version of Iron Man that we are seeing here, some version of that genius that turned into Doctor Doom. The other con with this, though, and this is maybe a little frustrating, is because I think that we are not going to get Robert Downey Jr. again past Secret Wars. I think that finally, after the multiverse saga is over, all these little cameo things and whatever are gone. I really do. I think it was fun for a while. I think that the multiverse saga was a way to kind of close out the past eras of Marvel for good. I think then we are going to finally move forward with our Spider-Man, Miles Morales, with our X-Men, with our Fantastic Four. But what that means is that you're going to have a temporary Doom, I think, where I don't think this is Doom. I think that there will probably be another Victor Von Doom, an actual one, which as somebody who really would have liked to have seen that organically come about, where it's, Reed Richards and Doom growing up as best friends as their children, and then there's this rivalry and whatever, and that all that comes up, and so they're kind of long-standing enemies. I like almost like Batman and Joker. It's like Reed and Victor kind of thing. I would have loved that. If you have Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards, unless there's some giant memory wipe thing, which I think is also kind of dumb at the end of Secret Wars, but if you have Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards already having interacted with it, it's like Harry Osborn, right, for Spider-Man. Peter has already interacted with the Green Goblin. So if and when he interacts with the 616's Norman Osborn, it's not going to have the same impact because he's going to be like, oh, I know you. You're just a different version of that other guy. So I think that is really the other big con to this whole idea as well, because I do think that you want to see that traditional Doom at some point, maybe not immediately, right? Maybe you can dig into other Fantastic Four villains after Avengers Secret Wars, but I think that is the other con. But I also think that for the sake of finishing out the multiverse saga, this is fascinating, right? Because what can you do with an evil Tony Stark? And again, I was acknowledging the fact that if you're going to do Secret Wars, probably you were going to see Chris Evans show up through some portal as Captain America and Robert Downey Jr. show up in some portal as Iron Man. And maybe he still will play some Iron Man variant. It's very possible, aside from Doom, I mean. But I also think that if you're going to bring back Robert Downey Jr., I think what's more interesting to me is having him come back into the MCU and maybe play Tony Stark, but play a different version of him, play an evil version of him that's Victor Von Doom. I think that's the most interesting. Again, there are so many different ways that they can go with this, but I'm very excited, more so than nervous, because I think that, the possibilities for whatever they're going to do here are endless. So those are just my thoughts. Anyways, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of what Robert Downey Jr., how he's going to fit into the MCU moving forward, and I look forward to reading those as you put them in. And guys, that will do it for episode 34 of the Access Blockbusters Pod. Thank you guys so much for listening. There was a lot to talk about. I know that this was a little bit late. I'll be posting the clips as usual, and I know that those clips will be coming out about a week and a half after all of this has settled, so I apologize for that. Hopefully you guys will still enjoy hearing my thoughts and theories about how Robert Downey Jr. can fit into the MCU, and about Comic-Con and DC and all that kind of good stuff. But in the meantime, if you're listening on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe to the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel. If you're listening on Spotify, leave a rating and let me know what you guys think of the podcast there as well. All right, guys, that'll about do it for me, and I will see you guys in the next one.